All right, here we go. All right, it's Sunday, so hallelujah. We're going to see who's out there tonight. I got myself a brand new studio right on the shores of Lake Erie.
Beautiful studio.
Yeah, you
Welcome
got
the.
You look like you're out in Arizona, and I look like I'm in right on the lakefront.
No, I'm in sunny Concord Township. It's beautiful here.
All right,
it never rains in Concord.
Yeah. All right, John, here you are, man. Lake County Commissioner with us here tonight. Good to see you.
That's right.
Hoot. Good.
Commissioner Plechnik, welcome.
Yeah, Commissioner, no. All right, we got a great show tonight. 7:30, we have Judge Andrew King, who's going to be joining us. He is running for the Ohio Supreme Court. He wants to knock off Jennifer Brunner. And we all want him to knock off Jennifer Brunner. Now, there's four judges that are vying for this one primary seat. Jill Lanzinger, Ron Lewis, we have Colleen O'Donnell, and Andrew King. And so we got King coming on here tonight. We'll talk to him. And then Aiden Haggard joins us tonight at 8:15. Aiden Haggard.
So, Joe, you said Judge King.
Okay.
Is he the guy all those No Kings protests are about?
I don't think so.
If this window was open out here, I'd go jump in that lake, okay? Yeah, we'll talk. That's a good question. We'll have to find out. Oh. Hey, listen. We're going to talk property taxes because you guys were out at the big event. So let's just go to that. Oh, before we do that, I've got something for you, John. I've got something for you, man. I want you to watch this right here.
You see,
so there you are singing the national anthem. Where are we at? Where are you at? Lake County Republican Lincoln Day dinner, and you were honored to get the highest award at that banquet. So congratulations, sir. A pretty good singer, too. Commissioner No. And that was a jam-packed house, too. A lot of people there. So you got that award, so congratulations on that.
Yeah, congratulations, Commissioner. That's great. Well deserved.
Very good.
Thank you so much, Joe. For your listeners' benefit, the J. William Stanton Award is named for the late Congressman and Lake County Commissioner Bill Stanton. Bill Stanton Park out in Madison Township is also named for him. And along with his public service, he's also known as being the employer back when he ran his car dealership in Paynesville. One of his salesmen was actually Don Shula, who went on to be the head coach for the Miami Dolphins. So Commissioner Congressman Stanton was a great man. It was an honor to win the Lake County Republican Party's highest award in his name. And what a special night with Senator John Husted, Auditor Keith Faber, Congressman Dave Joyce. It was a packed house at Regovich Catering and really a wonderful event. We were grateful Ohio Political News could cover it all with a live stream.
Yeah, we were able to live stream it. It was a good event, and I was very glad she invited us. All right, let's go to this here because this took place on Thursday. So let's take a look at this
I guess
here.
That is always the possibility, and that's why we try to get 6. I'd love to have
Just real quick, I just want to preface something. You guys are in Kirtland, Ohio. You're in this room. I guess it was a very, very big house. It must be a very big house. And this particular room, they wanted it to look just like the Oval Office. Minus Trump, minus Melania, minus some guys going out there and trying to shoot somebody. We'll talk about that later. But
million signatures.
Getting the signatures.
Maybe even the Secretary of State will say that's enough. We don't even have to check these.
Go for it this year or hold off?
That's a great question. I'm thinking probably the middle of June. We'll probably hold another press conference, or we will issue a press release telling everyone of our final decision on that. And that final decision will be made, by the committee. It's interesting. People always say, "Well, Brian, how are you going to replace the property tax dollars?" Our response to that is we're not going to. As Commissioner Plechnik says, the first thing that they must do is cut spending.
No, but that's a foreign word. That is a foreign, dirty word for state lawmakers.
That's a real foreign concept. Yes, I understand that, but Commissioner Plechnik is absolutely right. The general revenues have gone up 70% in the last 10 years, and Joe, I have to say this. I always make the joke that Ohio is known as first in aviation and 47th in everything else, but I was wrong. They are number one in something in the country, and they are number one in funding of public libraries.
Something to really be
by
proud
a
of.
lot.
That is something to be proud of. I mean,
But
that brings
what they're
tears to
doing
my
is-
eyes, Brian. I can't tell you how great it makes me feel. So when you say that we're number one in libraries, what does that mean? We give more money to libraries than anybody else, basically.
We give more money to our libraries than any other state.
Mm-hmm. Well, we had to be one in something,
and that's not.
We had to be number
that's
one.
Not something that we didn't develop. That we didn't have to do the research. It was done by the Legislative Service Commission. And what we did find out, though, is that they spend more. They changed it in this current cycle, but they've been spending more on public libraries than they have for the local government fund, which pays for police, fire, and roads. So
Joe,
we make yes, Commissioner.
So Joe, I think as we jovially say, first in aviation, 47th or last in everything else, we really do need to zero in on the point that Ohio is a high tax state. It's particularly high tax when you look at property taxes. We're in the top 10, top 15 states, depending on what ranking system you use. But even if we look at taxes overall, because you'll hear critics say, well, it's not just one tax. You need to look at the entire burden. And as a tax professor, I 100% agree with that comment. But if we look at the overall state and local tax burden, you're going to get salty because you're going to realize that we're in the top 15 or 20 overall. So when people say it's impossible to cut property taxes, it's impossible to cut 20% of the state budget, we need to remember that about 2/3 of the states are providing better services for less taxes. So to say it's impossible when we're in the bottom third is simply not true.
No, I agree with you there. Hey, if we go back to Thursday for a second, I got a couple of questions for you. When I played that video, a couple of the questions, I want you guys maybe to expound on it just a little bit. Brian, maybe I'll get you on there first. What if you don't collect, you got 305,000 signatures right now. You're going to let us know by the middle of June whether it has any chance of getting on the ballot or not, correct?
That is correct, yes, because we have to turn in the signatures to the Secretary of State by July 1st in order to get it on the November 2026 ballot. So we will know in the middle of June. For example, I said that we were on track to reach our 413,000 goal, but you can't really turn them in because you're going to need a certain quantity over that minimum amount. And we had set 620 from the very beginning, 620,000. And if we reach that, then we are rest assured that we can get to the 413 because they're going to throw probably a lot out. They're going to be watching this like a hawk. And probably ding us
they're going to go through it like a fine tooth comb. I know if there's any discrepancy, you didn't dot an I or something like that, they're going to cut that. This signature is no good. They don't want it. They don't want it passed. But so you got about 305,000 signatures right now. I know the weather's warming up. You can get out to fairs, some events.
Yes.
It's got to be a lot easier to get signatures.
Yeah,
now, right?
the winter months, certainly slowed us down because lack of opportunity to go to where the people are congregating. But there's a lot of people have worked so very hard in collecting this, and I'm really quite pleased that 305,000. No one was paid a dime to collect these signatures, unlike many of the other constitutional amendments that get on the ballot, where they bring people from outside, big money out from outside the state, and they're paying people to collect signatures. And I understand there's also professional signature collectors. They know how to do it. They may not just be sitting waiting for people to come by. They'll go out and they'll reach out to people.
Oh yeah, well yeah, sure. That's the most common way to do it. There was many years ago when I first got involved in politics, we had to go out and get a bunch of signatures, and I had never done it before, So I'm trying to figure out how to explain this to somebody, and I stopped somebody on a bike, and they actually listened to me, and I couldn't believe it. And I started to gain some courage and everything, and go around and get signatures, but it was like dirt slow. And I'll never forget, there was this Asian lady who couldn't even hardly speak English, who came up to me and said, do I need help with that? And I said, yeah, but okay. And I'm trying to explain to her what it's all about and everything, and she didn't have a clue. Like I said, she barely could speak English. But I said, here's the paperwork. Go out and see if you can get some signatures. She came back, I don't know, a half hour later. She had 25 signatures. She wanted more sheets. These people are, all she does is she puts the paper in front of somebody and says sign, and she takes on the RTA bus. She goes everywhere. I mean, and so some of these paid people are, very, very good at pushing you over the, very aggressive and very good at pushing you over the limit that you need, because some of us are just a little bit too easy going. You got to get into people's faces and into supermarkets and all that kind of thing. Let me read this here from Mechanic Kirk. It says, all I needed to see was 88 counties and 611 school districts with 611 superintendents making salaries of $130,000 plus their support staff, while Florida has 67 counties. So Florida only has 67 school districts. What do you think of them apples? I mean, Florida's doing everything right. And they're even talking about abolishing property taxes on your primary residence in this November.
Well, that's because Florida's got leaders. They've got leaders that actually think about the citizens of their state. And I agree with that Mechanic Kirk when he says 611 school districts. We've been saying that from the very beginning. Even Lake County Auditor Chris Galloway was saying that he thinks we can get by with, I think it was 97. Was that right, Commissioner Pletchik? I think 97, one for each county and maybe a couple for the larger counties like Cuyahoga or Franklin and Hamilton and that sort of thing. And here in Lake County, we've got 9 school districts, so we're saying we can make it a countywide school district with one superintendent, one curriculum director. We have to do something to reduce the overall cost of educating a child. It's when you look at the 20% reduction in the last 10 years or so in students, and an increase from $10,000 to $18,000 per child, and then you look at the proficiency scores, when only in third grade reading, it's 1/3 of them are proficient, and in math scores, only 50% are proficient in math. Why would we continue to do what we're doing? Now, obviously, there are certain school districts that are different from the norm. Here in Lake County, everybody looks at the Kirtland School District as the leader in the school districts. But it's just not sustainable. And I'm saying that, as Commissioner Pletchik have mentioned many times, Article 6, Section 2 of the Ohio Constitution, and even the Supreme Court back in '76, I believe it was, with the DeRolf case, they said using property taxes for school funding is unconstitutional. And we also have Representative Dan Troy in his, it was a town hall meeting they had at the, I think it was Willowick Library, and he said that the funding of public schools in Ohio was the purest form of socialism. So we've got socialists, running the state of Ohio.
Okay, I'm going to throw this one over to Commissioner No here for a second, but there is a group, I don't know if you guys are aware of this, Ohioans to Protect Public Services. So this is a group that has come out against your abolishment of property taxes. And they've launched a campaign warning of catastrophic effects. Property taxes currently generate $24 billion annually for local governments, 65% of the local tax revenue for funding schools, police, fire, roads, libraries, senior services. Without replacement revenue source in the amendment, critics predict deep cuts, service reductions, massive increases, massive sales tax, massive income tax. The world's going to end. What do you think there, Mr. Commissioner? No, what can we do?
Well, bureaucrats for higher taxes, or whatever they call themselves, is just an AstroTurf campaign. The reality is, we all know that if property taxes are abolished, it's a very modest cut to the overall revenue for the state of Ohio, something that we could easily enough cut, and we would still be in the mid-range of states for how much taxes we pay. It's not that we need new and different taxes. It's not that we need property taxes to fund essential services. Those things simply are untrue. What we need is a state government that does its gosh darn job and starts to cut spending. We're overtaxed, we're overburdened, and no amount of public ads, no amount of propaganda is going to convince grandma and grandpa that, oh, well, I should be homeless because that's the only way to pay for roads. That is not true. 2 out of 3 states in the union do better for less. We can do better too. And so bureaucrats for higher taxes, or whatever they call themselves, is just something the politicians cooked up because they don't want to do their job and they don't want to anger their donor base. At the end of the day, if we cut property taxes by $24 billion, we get Ohio right about where it should be, at least. You know, we're getting competitive with other states, but that makes their job real hard because they don't have billions of extra dollars sloshing around their budget each year to hand out to the Brown Stadium, to hand out to data centers. It really wrecks the whole plan of being a state rep or state senator, where you overtax us, you hand our money out as party favors, you get massive campaign contributions, rinse and repeat. That doesn't work if property taxes go away. It's not that you'll lose roads, your state senator's going to lose their campaign fund.
I want you guys to look at this for a minute. This poor lady here. This story. I caught this in the newspaper here. This is not Cleveland. This is Chicago. But the story could be Cleveland. All right, so this poor lady here on Social Security has no money. They valued her house there at $300,000. What do you think of that? $300,000. She owes them $4,300 in property taxes. Now, she was not paying any property taxes. She doesn't have any money. I mean, she is scraping by just to pay the utilities and barely eat and stuff like that, okay? So she has no money. But the bureaucrats said that, well, the money that she was receiving from this senior citizens real estate tax deferral program, they didn't get it from the state, the county said. So we're charging you $4,300. Like last year, she didn't pay anything. This year, $4,300, and they want it. And when she talked to the agencies and stuff, she couldn't get anywhere. Nobody knew anything. And they said, if you really want to fight it, go get yourself a lawyer. That was the response. Now, it's pretty obvious, first of all, this house ain't worth no $300,000. And I mean, come on, you almost want to just bulldoze it into the ground, basically. It's so, but these guys are so heartless. And she was able.
Joe, we've got any
was,
number of those things.
I know. That's the point I wanted to make. The point is that we're talking about this lady only because there was a lawyer who intervened, and he went to the TV station, and he talked to the treasurer's office and everything else, and finally they got it all straightened out, and she's not going to have to pay any property taxes. So it's got a good ending here. But she was lucky. And how many of the people like her don't have the backing of a TV station, don't have the backing of a lawyer, weren't able to finagle this, and they got to pay like her. If she had to pay $4,300, man, they are not going to get that tax revenue. So they're going to sell her house to a third party who will then give the county the money they want for the taxes, and that third party then can do whatever they want with the house, sell it, make a profit, do whatever. But that is the heartlessness that we're dealing with these county agencies and with the state government right now. That's the point I want to put a face on all this stuff. Because when we're saying we're abolishing property taxes because it's hurting families, it's hurting senior citizens, it's hurting everybody. It's hurting even somebody like Aiden Haggard, who's coming on at 8:15, who's only 19 years old, Generation Z. He's running for a state house. It hurts people like him, too, because he's saddled, the kids in Generation Z, they're saddled with a lot of college debt. These houses are incredibly outpriced. They can't buy a house. They can't pay afford the property taxes.
They can't get the down payment for a house.
Yeah, and a lot of them don't even have a job, but they got $100,000 college debt on top of everything. So we're killing Generation Z. That's my thought.
Joe, there was a chat up there. Doug Sandy, I believe it was. They're offering to help validate the signatures. I would ask that if you could send me your contact information to stoppropertytaxes@gmail.com, and if you want to help in any way, shape, or form, just send me your contact information. We're going to take you up on that offer because what we do is we download every petition that we're processing. That's a requirement of the state, and I guess we can work somehow by sending you the files and checking them out for us. That would be great.
So any kind of help that you can get, you're looking for it. You're looking for any kind of help. How much money are Ohio legislators planning to spend to oppose this? How much money do you think the opposition will pay? What do you think, Brian? I think they'll pay whatever it takes to squash it.
I had heard $100 million. I have no way of validating that at all or not. I really don't. But I've got ask Commissioner Plechnik, but I want to come back and I want to just tell everybody how evil they are at the State House and in our society. I've got something to tell everybody.
Go ahead. Let's hear it. Yeah, let's hear it right now. Go ahead, Brian.
Well, what I was told by a Lake County friend, she'll go, I never reveal sources, but what I was told is, Brian, they were asking from the State House, the deep state and the State House, they were asking if Brian Massey has any vices that they can exploit. And the second thing I was told by another source in the news business, that there is a news report supposedly going to be published that says that the Vivek Ramaswamy campaign has offered Brian Massey $10 million to stop the whole abolishment movement. Number one, I want to say categorically that is untrue. That is bearing false witness against Mr. Ramaswamy, and I am against that completely. In fact, he has been more than kind in listening, to our proposals for the abolishment of property taxes, and he hasn't signed the petition yet. But there is no way, shape, or form has he been, trying to the campaign trying to bribe Brian Massey. It is just not true. And and as far as Brian Massey have any vices, well, I don't smoke, I don't drink, I've never had a bottle of beer, I can't gamble because I start to sweat when I'm down $10, and I've been married to the same woman for 52 years. Now, I have to confess that I did have a speeding ticket when I was 18, but I'm not sure that's much of a smear campaign.
That's not a smear campaign. Oh, my gosh. But I can't believe you were just saying that somebody said Ramaswamy was going to give you $10 million. That's so ludicrous. That is such a ludicrous statement.
And I think it's unfair to the Mr. Ramaswamy's campaign. Again, I don't know who comes up with that, but that is he's just not that type of man. And I've only met him a couple times and talked to him, but I just don't think that's fair, and I want to squash it.
John, you got anything you want to say? And then we're going to bring on our guest here, Andrew King, who is running for Ohio Supreme Court. But
well, it's certainly a shocking thing to hear that Vivek Ramaswamy and Brian Massey would be accused of a bribery scheme. Certainly untrue. But as I said to Brian, it doesn't matter if you've done nothing wrong. In my experience, even if you've done nothing wrong, they'll just make something up. And that's exactly what the swamp in Columbus has become. It's a miniature of Washington, D.C., and if they can't find something to blackmail you on, they'll just lie on you. But what I want to emphasize is the breadth of this problem. You showed the depth. You showed the tragedy of one poor woman in Chicago who's losing her home and can barely get by because of excessive property taxes, and there are countless stories like that in Ohio. But as real a problem as it is for senior citizens on a fixed income who are literally being taxed out of their homes, we need to remember that these high property taxes are pricing young families out of Ohio homes. It's not just the mortgage payment, it's the property taxes you pay monthly as part of that mortgage payment that determine what's affordable or not to a family. And frankly, in many cases, the property taxes are a third, a fourth, sometimes half of what the mortgage payment becomes in the later years. And when you add that additional burden, it just prices young families out of the housing market. And even for renters, we got to remember, landlords aren't providing housing as a charity. They're doing it to make money. So anytime you see property taxes go up, you know what goes up with it? Your rent. This is universal. If you live in a home, you are paying property taxes one way or the other, whether you're paying it directly to the county treasurer's office, you're paying it through your mortgage, or you're paying it through higher rent. Landlords, tenants, homeowners, everyone is affected by this. And the final step on that train is all the homeless people who are struggling out there in the freezing cold because they couldn't afford a home. And the gall of politicians to form an AstroTurf campaign to keep more and more and more of your money rather than address the problem, it's sad. I mean, I want to turn around one of their tropes right on them. Keep saying it's irresponsible to abolish property taxes without a plan of what we're going to do next, even though we have a plan. 2 words, caught spending. Let me say this to them. It is irresponsible to propose higher and higher and higher property taxes without a plan for relief for seniors on a fixed income, for young families who can't afford to buy a home, for renters who can't afford to make the monthly rent. Where's your plan?
you got it.
Yeah, Joe, I've got one other thing, if I may. At the press conference, tell everybody we produced what the committee did, and that is an Ohioan's Declaration of Independence. Because we're calling out all of the officials, we're calling out the legislators because they are not following their oath of office to support and defend the Ohio Constitution. Article 1 of the Ohio Constitution clearly states that they're supposed to protect property. Private property ownership is the foundation of our freedom and liberty. If we do not have that, we're merely serfs to the government. Right now, we're paying taxes on unrealized gains, and it's just an illusion that we own our home. We don't. Any tax that is causing a citizen to become homeless is immoral. So the committee is declaring an independence from the state of Ohio and their property taxes. And since the legislators and the judicial branch and the executive branch, since they have betrayed the citizens of Ohio, we, the citizens of Ohio, are going to abolish the property taxes. So that's our Declaration of Independence in Ohio.
And Brian, they are running scared. Let me tell you, It's amazing to see the media reaction. It's amazing to see the reaction of the public after your historic announcement on Thursday and the Declaration of Independence from property taxes, sharing that we've collected over 305,000 signatures to abolish real property taxes in Ohio. You know, every news station, statewide media, local papers, really just an incredible wave of news. And the reaction of the public is, where can I sign? So it really is a movement that keeps getting growth. And when you see state legislators and state senators react to it, they're scared. They're like, it would be devastating. It'd be devastating. And I'm thinking, yeah, to your campaign account, it would be.
All right, I got to see if Andrew King is with us here, guys. I don't want to hold him, keep him waiting too long. Andrew, you're out there. Are you out there?
I'm here. I'm just listening to this
awesome.
fascinating
Okay.
conversation about property taxes. So
Yeah,
I'm good.
Joe. One last comment on the chat.
We have a habit of just talking about this topic a lot, but it's a good topic. Go ahead.
The chat. Someone on the chat asked if I would post that online so they can share it, and I will do that this week. I will post our new Ohioans Declaration of Independence.
Gotcha. All right, so we have Andrew King with us here tonight, and Judge, you're going to be running, or you are running, I guess I should say.
That's right.
You are running right now because I mean the race is nearing its finish line. It goes fast,
Days
doesn't
away.
it? Yeah, it does go fast. So, let me ask you, would you rather have a month-long voting process like we have now, or would it be better for you guys if it was just like the good old days? It was like one-day voting. What would you prefer?
I mean, if I had my druthers, it would be election day, not election month and a half, whatever it is. So no, I do remember the old days of everyone having to go and vote on election day, and I think there's a lot to be desired from going back to that.
Gotcha. Okay, so now you are a judge for the Ohio 5th District Court of Appeals currently. Maybe just quickly, briefly, tell us what exactly that is.
Well, so the 5th District Court of Appeals, the Court of Appeals generally, they sit between the trial court and the Ohio Supreme Court. So most of the time, if you have a complaint, an issue, a criminal, divorce, will, suing someone, being sued, property dispute, boundary line issue, you go to a local court, typically a common pleas court in the county, could be a municipal court. And then if you don't like the result there, you can appeal it to us. You essentially get one appeal as of right, and that is us. And if you file it, we hear it, we'll give you a written decision. And then if you're still not happy, or you want, sort of a second look at it, maybe it's a new issue of the law. We saw this with after Bruin and the Second Amendment. There was a lot of unsettled issues about that. Then you might take it to the Ohio Supreme Court and say, hey, we want you to interpret this statute for the first time. We want you to resolve disputes between the Court of Appeals. Or, hey, this is a constitutional right that we haven't looked at in 25, 30 years, and let's look at it again. So those are the kind of things that sort of go on from us generally to the Ohio Supreme Court.
Let me let everybody know for the Ohio Supreme Court now that this primary that there are 4 people running, 4 other judges. So there's Jill Lanzinger is running, Ron Lewis, Colleen O'Donnell, and of course yourself, Andrew King. They're all trying to challenge Jennifer Bruner, get her the heck out of there, and make the Supreme Court all Republican if that happens. As long as Dan Hawkins wins, too. So right now, what do we have? We have 6 Republicans, I believe, on the Supreme Court, which is great because for a while there, it was starting to go the other direction, and we've made a comeback with that. One of the things, and I've had some people say, hey, if you get some judges on, can you help us sort through who's the best candidate and stuff like that? And I think it's one of the most difficult platforms to run on is a judge, because I've talked to the other judges. Pretty much everybody sounds pretty similar. Everybody says that they are a conservative, they're going to interpret the law, they're not going to be an activist judge, things of that nature. Can you give us something to hold on to which would separate you from maybe the generic judge that's out there, why should we vote for you?
I mean, first of all, I mean, it's an excellent question, and I think it's something that everyone needs to be doing, because the example that I often point to when I'm talking to folks is we had the former Chief Justice Maureen O'Connor, ostensibly a Republican, and but despite that party label, was typically siding for three very important cases with the three Democrats and changing the law in a way that I don't think was consistent with my personal judicial philosophy. So, I think you're right to ask for proof. I mean, judges tend to only come around and be seen in public on election years, and we're always, particularly Republican primaries, trying to say, hey, we're the most conservative. So, I mean, I think one of the first things is you want to know the sort of background, and is there verifiable, demonstrable evidence that someone is what they say they are. So, like in my case, when I talk about being a gun owner, was a CHL, concealed license, handgun licensee since the early days, member of NRA, Buckeye Firearms. I've written on the Second Amendment, and then those are examples of, I'm not just telling you during this time that I believe in the Second Amendment. I've walked that talk and lived by that. And then sort of beyond that, philosophically, I think you're looking for things that demonstrate a real commitment to the judicial philosophy that I think is best in sync with what most Republicans want, particularly conservative Republicans, and that's interpreting the Constitution by its original meaning and approaching statutes as they were written by the legislature. And for me, I usually point to folks, say, hey, I've been involved in the Federal Society since my first semester of law school. I mean, it's a conservative / libertarian legal organization for lawyers and law students to advance that sort of thinking. And I mean, I teach at a law school. I believe the commissioner does too. I mean, it's not exactly the hotbed of conservative thought. So, standing up and joining it, and then later I was an officer. Now I'm the faculty advisor. And, I think, and I've go talk to law students around the state and the Federal Society. So I've sort of put my money where my mouth is and said, hey, this is who I am. This is what I believe. And, if you don't like it in this case, you can choose not to vote for me. So I think that's what you're looking for. You're trying to find a few examples, and you're trying to get a little bit into the judge's head as to what judicial philosophy, because I mean, the other piece that I think is we can't make commitments, right? I mean, you had folks on and say, hey, this is what we're going to do about property tax or whatever. And I can't and shouldn't make a commitment before I hear a case that I'm always going to rule a certain way. But so what I can do instead is say, hey, this is how I approach cases. This is how I think about cases. This is how I resolve cases. And hopefully there's consistency there. And if you like the way that I'm doing that, then you would want to vote for me.
Yeah,
I realize that was a little bit of a long answer, but
yeah, it's got to be tough. I think I've always said it's very tough being a judge because there's a lot of things you can't say. And then when you do speak, it sounds like the same judge says a lot of the same things. I made a joke one time that you could take the head off of a judge, screw it off, put another head on them, and you'd get a lot of the same rhetoric and answers and stuff. But I know that you're very sound, very conservative. You'd make a great, great judge. For the Supreme Court, which is so important because you mentioned again, boy, that was Maureen O'Connor, right? Who was supposedly a Republican, but good grief, all she did was side with the Democrats. Let me go around here and get some questions. Brian, we've got possibly another Supreme Court judge here.
Yeah, and pardon me if this is inappropriate, but it bothers me, and that is I haven't been impressed with the Supreme Court ever since the DeRolf case. I think they betrayed the citizens of Ohio by declaring it on the school funding being unconstitutional, but then after a series of legal challenges, they just sort of dropped it and put it in the hands of the legislature. And now we get from the legislators saying, well, we have totally revamped the school funding formula and it's now constitutional. But I have to say, wait a minute, time out here. The only ones that get to determine whether it's constitutional or not is the Supreme Court, And the Supreme Court, no one has challenged the current school funding formula, and therefore we don't know if it's constitutional or not because the Supreme Court has not ruled on it. Am I wrong in my thinking?
No. I mean, I think for me, and I teach a little bit on this subject, I probably approach it a little bit more philosophically in the line of like Lincoln or Madison, in that, each branch should have the ability to make a decision about the constitutionality of their exercise of power committed to their branches. Now, does that mean that it's going to be the final decision? I mean, each branch gets to sort of carry out its duties in its own way. So, I don't fundamentally have a problem with the legislators saying, "Hey, we looked at it. We think we're acting consistent with our constitutional guidelines." But the way our system works with judicial review is if someone disagrees with that, then they go to the court, and then they hash it out, and judges decide. So, I mean, I would imagine sooner or later that issue will circle back around. I for what it's worth, I think your frustration is well placed. I mean, it doesn't do the judiciary any good to take a case up, and I think it ended up 4 times in front of the Supreme Court total, and then basically at the end say, "Hey, we said there's a right here, but no remedy." I mean, that's not really how the legal system should work. So, I mean, I've got no issue with anyone expressing they're frustrated about it. In fact, Duralf originated in the 5th District, Perry County, if I remember correctly. So we actually, it's come through our court a few times too.
Thank you very much.
Welcome, Judge King.
Well, good to be with you, Commissioner.
So my question to you is, why are liberals organizing protests all around Ohio against you? I mean, these No Kings protests just keep coming.
Well, I mean, they know what they're going to get with me. They're going to get strict constitutional jurisprudence, and they don't want it. I mean, that's antithetical to their long-term project, right, of rewriting the Constitution of this country. So, hey, I'll take it as a badge of honor. They don't want kings, so...
So, question here for me is, let's just say you do win the primary. How formidable opponent is Jennifer Brunner, do you think? And what kind of a strategy might you use? Statewide is tough, isn't it? Trying to cover the entire state of Ohio.
Sure. No, I mean, I think, I think big picture, what we don't know yet is what the environment of the state's going to be. I mean, if the elections were held today, there's certainly a lot of signs that all Republicans on the statewide ticket are going to have difficulties. I mean, Vivek will have 6 months, and John Husted to 6 months to sort of get out there. We might get President Trump in town. So, I mean, those are all sort of unknown variables that we have that could sort of influence the outcome. I really think putting that sort of big 600-pound gorilla aside, just to have the discussion, I think it's sort of 2 things. Is one, we know since the party affiliation went on the ballot that the justices tend to track fairly closely with the top of the ticket. So it doesn't matter. I mean, it used to be, well, do you have an Irish name? Is it female versus a male? And all that sort of stuff. I mean, if you look at the last several elections, male versus male, last name versus, none of that matters. There's pretty consistency of a point or 2 difference between the justice candidates and the top of the ticket. So, the folks that are getting out there supporting Vivek and Faber and LaRose and whoever else comes out, I mean, they're going to have an impact on who the next justice is. And then to your other point is, I mean, Jennifer Brunner is a no name. I mean, she won in 2006 as a Secretary of State. She has won a couple of times in Franklin County as a judge. And she, was a candidate for the United States Senate. And I think I've heard Justice Hawkins talk about this. There's going to be a lot of out-of-state money again from Eric Holder's groups and whatnot coming in. So, my thought, and when I talk to folks, is I think that we need to put forward the best, number 1, the most conservative candidate, and 2, the candidate that has some track record of beating Democrats and has some ability to, meet the strength of Jennifer Brunner and not have any, ethical issues or anything in their background. So for me, I point to the fact that I beat a Democrat, an incumbent Democrat to get my current seat. It was about a 30-point victory. So, I feel like I've done it, and I think that all the other candidates, have to sort of point to how do they think they can beat an incumbent Democrat with a good, well-known name.
Yeah. Well, you've got a good name. King is a good name up there. Just looking at the list here, Ron Lewis is a good name. Colleen O'Donnell's a good name. Jill Lanzinger is a pretty good name. So if somebody's just going into and some people are like this, they'll just go and say, hey, I know this King guy, or I've heard of O'Donnell or whatever. Some people don't put a whole lot of thought into the voting process. Also, I want to say this. If you're in the chat, ask a question. We've got Judge with us here, Judge Andrew King, for a few more minutes and stuff. So if you have a question, please submit it, and we can get him to answer it. That'd be the way to go. I saw you pop in, Jonathan.
Yeah, I snuck in here too. So I joined late. You may have covered this already. I actually had a prior commitment, so I joined about 10 minutes ago. Thank you for coming on the show and joining us. My question pertains to this monstrous beast of a document. Hopefully, and this is a little note to our listening audience, if you go on the Secretary of State's website, and I'm personally hopeful that that's replaced with Marcel Sturbich before too long, but regardless, whatever name is in the corner, you too can go on and for free get a mailed copy of our state constitution. We have, not everybody understands this dynamic, but we have two constitutions. There's a federal constitution we talk about all the time, especially us conservatives, but there's also a state level constitution. And my question pertains to the ease with which outside forces can influence this. We have a fat, thick, overstuffed, bloated state constitution. There was an effort a few years ago to make it more difficult to monkey around with our state constitution. For anybody that doesn't know, that is viewed as an avenue to bypass our legislature in the state of Ohio and get rules on the books that then now judges and our Supreme Court have to follow that have not gone through vetting and voting by the public. So I'm wondering what your position is, and if you've made public comment about efforts to make it more difficult to influence our state constitution.
Sure. No, I mean, when that issue was on the ballot, I voted to raise the threshold. I can't remember which way it was, affirmative or negative was the vote, but that's how I voted, was to ultimately raise the threshold. I think as a general matter, when you're putting something in the Constitution, you're intending for it to be sort of a super legislation, something beyond just the regular presentment to the governor after a majority in both houses sort of thing. So,
right.
I think it should require something above and beyond that for amending the Constitution as a general philosophical matter. There still would be the initiative process to allow initiated statutes. I think we saw that with the marijuana statute. And to the best of my knowledge, even though there was discussions about it, I don't think there was any major changes. So, I mean, there's still a direct democracy, majoritarian way to, petition the government for grievances, even if you move the threshold of the Constitution up. So, I think as a general matter, 50+1 is too low for amending any Constitution. But, as an Ohioan and Ohio Constitution, I voted in favor of that and would do so again.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot for that. I don't know if Brian or John has a question.
I just follow up on what Jonathan said. I believe the Ohio Constitution's been changed 174 times or something like that. So it's not 50+1. I agree with the judge that we should go to at least to a 60% threshold. It shouldn't be that easy to change the Constitution. That's supposed to be a rock solid foundational document.
I want to bring together this conversation on the Constitution and what threshold we should have to change it with our previous conversation on property taxes, because we hear over and over again, 50%+1, people voted to approve these levies. The voters want higher and higher taxes. But the truth is, when we say 50%+1, we're not talking about a majority of Ohioans or even a majority of registered voters. We're talking about a majority of people who came to the polls at a particular election. And so we see so many changes, both Ohio constitutional amendments and tax increases, where the proponents deliberately place these issues on the ballot in a low turnout election. And if they lose, they do it again and again and again. Frankly, by random luck, they're going to get a majority vote of that minority of the voting public at some point if they just keep at it. So it is not majoritarian. It's not majority rule. It's actually the tyranny of the minority, where you have elites who put these issues on the ballot over and over and over again, either through paid signature collectors or by voting it on the ballot as a school board member or a city councilman to raise taxes, knowing that eventually the public will get tired and they'll be able to sneak it through. So if you put it to a 60% majority, it wouldn't even translate to a majority of the voting public, because in reality, you seldom have 100. If you never have 100% voter turnout.
No, that's a really good point. Yeah, that's an excellent point, because the people that it's only 50% plus one of the people that show up to vote. If it's an off year, or off month, sometimes these things happen, these votes. There's virtually nobody going. Yeah, that's the way that a lot of the schools get their levies passed. And then the rhetoric is, well, the people voted for it, the people wanted it, and that's just not the case.
No, and I mean, to your point, Commissioner, and to your point, Joe, that's been my experience in my local school district. Is it doesn't pass during certain years, particularly if it's a spring situation, because the college students aren't in town. They put it back on the ballot in November, and there's more people here, and it passes. So, I mean, it is an excellent point. And, to that is, I think Massachusetts, I think there's some other states that have like a multi-session type presentment thing where you can't just do it in one election. It requires, and I think it's maybe in the legislative session where it's, multiple sessions in a row. So, I mean, again, it's a fine point. And, like you said, I've seen a lot of folks vote in tax levies and then the rest of the community not happy at that small number of people that do it. So that's an excellent point.
So how long have you wanted to be a Ohio Supreme Court justice? When did you first think of that?
Well, I mean, I'd be kidding you if I said that, I grew up wanting to even be a judge.
Kindergarten, right? In kindergarten,
that's
I got to be an Ohio Supreme Court justice, yeah.
I had my attaché case and, waistcoat and bow tie, and I was like, I'm going to be... No, it was none of that. I mean, for me, it was I enjoyed the reading and writing in law school. And then I worked for a Court of Appeals judge and thought, I really like this. I really like this part of the profession. And so I was fortunate enough to do appellate work. And then, the opportunity came up to run for the Court of Appeals, and I was, successful on my second time out, like I said, beating a Democrat. And, a couple people on my court had run in the past for the Ohio Supreme Court. And, I think for me, when you've looked around and you've seen the disappointment in judges in Ohio, I mean, not in the last year or two, but, in the past, at the federal level, that when you have folks who don't take the Constitution seriously, their role as a judge seriously, and think that they can demand certain things out of Congress, the president, the General Assembly, whatever. I mean, I think it puts a fine point on it, that you need people who are philosophically committed to doing the job that the Constitution provides, and only that job. So we know when there's an opportunity to go, beat the last Democrat, I thought, hey, let's go replace the Democrat with a constitutional conservative, and let's go.
Okay, let's do this, Judge. We're going to have you give us your spiel as to why we should vote for you right now. So this is your campaign spiel, and let's hear that message for us, okay?
Sure, I appreciate it. Well, I mean, you've heard it in fragments. I mean, in essence, at the core, this race is about beating the incumbent Democrat, Jennifer Berner. I mean, we can say her name here. We're among friends. And that's really what we want. But in my view, that is the minimum acceptable success of the mission. Is we need someone who's not only just going to replace her with a Republican, but that's going to approach the Constitution and the laws in the manner that I said, because otherwise we just potentially end up right back to where we were under the Chief Justice O'Connor, or even before that. I mean, to some extent, if you've and the commissioner may remember this, I mean, the way that things were in the 90s and early 2000s were even crazier, with striking down various legislation from the General Assembly. So we don't want to go back to those days. We don't want one justice to sort of swing it in my view, an anti-constitutional direction. So that's why I was running. And from my point of view, you need someone that has the capacity to run around the state and make the connections, which, is what I spent all last year doing. And, got the county endorsements, not because I started out, as a lobbyist or a former lobbyist on Cap Square, or because, like some of the other folks, I was appointed by the governor at some point. It was, grab the lunch pail and go to work sort of thing. And I feel like that's what it's going to take to beat Jennifer Brunner. And, that's what I learned from, my parents, that you got to work hard, and that's the American dream. And that's what I intended to do. And I think it's paid off with the support that I've gotten around the state from, Republican parties, officials, like Ohio Right to Life, Buckeye Firearms. So, again, having the experience of beating a Democrat, being a constitutional conservative, being able to show that, I have the grassroots and can win those people over. And I'm not beholden to the Cap Square crew, right? Like, I mean, I am not of that. And like I said, never was rewarded with an appointment. So I will be faithful to the Constitution without fail. So that's who I am.
All right. There you go. Well, we're going to give you some confetti for that. Get this out of here. Well, thanks a lot. I really appreciate you coming on the show tonight to express your views and everything. And best of luck. You got about 10 days. And then
is that it? That's all that's left?
I think so. I think there's about 10 days, right? May 5th. So anyhow, it's going to go fast. Well, thanks again, Andrew. Thank you very much. God bless you. Good to see you.
Thank you all. Good seeing everyone. Appreciate it.
Man. Thank you, Andrew.
So, Kent, are you out there? What do you got hopping? We'll let you talk for a minute. Yep. And we have, by the way, we have a young man coming on, Aiden Haggard. So stick around for that. This guy, he's phenomenal. Yep. He is phenomenal. He is a young John Poleshnik. John, there's somebody on your coattails, man. All right. What you got brewing here?
Just thanks for everybody watching tonight. We got nice from all the different platforms. Thanks for joining us tonight, and also just make sure to join us for primary election coverage May 5th. We'll be doing also a giveaway. Everybody can enjoy some Amazon money, a $50 gift card. We'll do the drawing around 9 p.m. as we're covering all the election races. Make sure to also, if you can do a super chat on YouTube. You can do a Rumble rant on Rumble. You can also support us through Facebook on Stars. This does cost money to do. We appreciate everybody watching tonight, and we had a great turnout with everybody watching for the Brian Massey announcement with the property taxes. It was a great turnout. We appreciate everybody watching. But stay with us, support us. We do also, if you have anything going on in your area that you want to let us know about, please let us know, and we will try to cover it. I know there's a lot going on in Perry right now with the data center. I went around Perry this weekend, and there's more signs about the data centers out than the actual election campaigns. So everybody is very upset over the data center in Perry. So we'll be covering that, I think, tomorrow night, Joe. I think it's at.
I think I'm going to do a special podcast tomorrow night, and we have Aaron She is with the Conserve Ohio group, and she's the one who's gathering signatures for Perry Village, or for the data center stuff, to abolish the data center. So we got her coming on, and a couple people from Perry Village. So it should be a good discussion and everything. Anything else you want to say? Yeah, we're going to be going live on the primary night and covering those races. So there's some good races to cover.
Sure. Yeah. And again, sharing is caring on all these platforms. Please share these podcasts out, the shows. Let people know about us, Ohio Political News. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to Joe at ohiopoliticalnews.com or Kent at ohiopoliticalnews.com. And we can, definitely reach out to you if you want to come be a guest, or someone that would be a great guest. Please let us know. We want to get the information out to everybody in Ohio. So that's the whole idea of Ohio Political News. Thanks, Joe.
All right. Thanks a lot, Ken. All right. Hey, speaking of which, this was some footage here. Let me see if I can get some sound. All right. So this was at the data center, the protest. I guess I should
protect Perry and Lake Erie.
You gotta train them sometime.
All right, so protect Lake Erie
And Lake Erie.
and Perry.
Yeah, Perry and Lake Erie.
Protect Lake Erie and Perry. And so they had a council meeting there. Perry Village had a council meeting. You were not allowed to talk, but the data center, the big guys from the data center came in and gave a presentation about how great it was going to be to have this monstrosity data center plopped in their backyard, 1 mile from the schools, 1 mile from their schools. With the pollution, we've talked about this stuff, but the pollution, the electricity, the noise pollution, the light pollution as well, those electronic vibrations that are going through the air, we don't know what the effects are going to be, the harmful effects of these massive data centers.
We have some pretty good indication.
Don't we have 200 data centers built in Ohio? I
have a question for you.
We have 200, but we only have about 20 to 25 that are these massively huge AI data centers.
Well, yeah, and they plan to build more of them. But I have a question for you, Joe. So if I understand correctly, what you're saying is that there was a meeting that took place where only one side was able to present and the other side was muted and silenced.
Right.
And that sounds, if that's true, a lot like the discussions around abolishing property taxes. We've seen those meetings take place all over Ohio, where we've got the doomsayers, all of the people that want to fearmonger, saying that abolishing property taxes will immediately result in the closure of all the schools and the fire departments and et cetera, yada, yada. I, for one, am getting awfully darn tired of these one-sided community discussions where the opposing viewpoint isn't presented. And maybe Brian could speak to that.
Yeah, you're talking about the meetings that we have at the libraries. There have been a couple in Geauga County where they just have those that are against the abolishment of the property tax movement. I remember going to a library in Bainbridge, and I was in the back room. I was recording it, and they wouldn't let anybody that was for the abolishing of property taxes to speak. So this is all just one-sided. And Jonathan is correct in that.
That one in particular, that Bainbridge one, there were people there that were basically shouting out, like, let Brian speak. They were one step short of putting duct tape over his mouth so that Brian couldn't speak on the movement to abolish property taxes. And it looks to me like that's the modus operandi now, where you're going to have these advocates go in and pitch things like building out these AI data centers in Perry. And the new agenda seems to be to silence dissent. They just won't acknowledge and won't allow people to get up and speak. And kudos to those people that gathered outside the building. It looks like that's really, at this point, their only avenue to express the opinion and the interests of the community. I'm sorry that it's come to that, because we should have community discussion. Remember back in the day when we had the marketplace of ideas and may the best idea win? That only happens if all ideas are permitted to present themselves. And just on a related note, just in case we want to kick it around for today's discussion, on Voice of Geauga last week, we had a guest come on with a long track record of volunteer work for an organization called League of Women Voters, who still hold themselves out to be a neutral, bipartisan initiative. But we make the argument, I absolutely make the argument, that they have steered and continue to steer significantly left. They're no longer bipartisan in any way, shape, or form that I'm able to measure. But when you start to get those kinds of meetings, when you get a city council that will invite people in to only speak on one side of an issue and silence others, and when you have such important debates and discussions that need to take place, they need air to breathe, like whether or not to build data centers, whether or not to abolish property taxes. That really requires, on a community and regional and state level, open discussion. And right now, it seems to me, and in particular, League of Women Voters are crushing one side of the debate or the other, steering society into a direction. And that's not okay in my book.
You know, I was going to read this. Earlier, but we kind of got sidetracked. But this has to do with we were talking about that lady. Remember that? This woman right here. I wanted to bring her on. And now they appraised her house at $300,000. By the way, she lives in Chicago. That thing should be torn down, is what should happen. But anyhow, in this article, they said that even with all of these protections, and remember, she has a lot of senior citizen protections and stuff like that, they said it's still more likely that homeowners will be paying higher property taxes in today's environment, meaning the senior citizens as well and everybody. A simple way to realistically prepare for these payments is to treat property taxes as a monthly expense. So what they want you to do is, for instance, with this lady here, she can't afford the $4,300 yearly tax bill. Okay, why doesn't she just divide it by 12 and then make monthly payments? All right, that's their solution, guys. That's the solution. Make monthly payments, and your life is wonderful. There's nothing to even worry about. That is
that doesn't
heartless.
Reduce.
Cruel, that's stupid. But I've heard Ohio lawmakers say the same thing.
Yeah, we do that in Lake County.
Yeah.
Lake County Treasurer does that. Mike Zern, he's very proud of his program that says, well, he did say he'll never foreclose on anybody as long as he's treasurer, but they've got to continue to make the monthly payments. So it's nonsense. I wanted to ask Jonathan a question on those data centers. I had heard out in Perry, they're now signing NDAs, non-disclosure agreements, to try to keep information away from the public. I can't believe we'd be going down that path at all.
I'm glad you brought that up, because in my book, and this is not legal advice, I'm not a lawyer, I just have spent decades in close proximity to lawyers and pay close attention to what's legal and what's not, and what kinds of recourses and avenues we the people have. Because ultimately, remember, for all the people out there, and that's most everybody who says government of the people, by the people, and for the people, we almost say it kind of by rote now, know that actually means something. There are laws, rules, and regulations that were put in place to protect our interests. And so what I suggest is that has to be challenged. Somebody in or around Perry has to that needs, in my book, to take the reins on some lawsuit, because in my book, that's a violation of Sunshine Law. If you have representatives, you have local elected representatives, their job is to represent the interests of the public, and they must do so in a very public way. Anything that takes place, for instance, in private meetings that's not discussed in front of the public, in my understanding, is completely illegitimate and illegal. That's violation of sunshine law. So the whole notion that they could suddenly wave some magic wand in Perry and poof, they're not subject to sunshine laws and they can just do things whatever they want in private. What if that were to be true? Then why wouldn't they just draft up a couple of sunshine or a couple of non-disclosure agreements per week and sign off giving billions of dollars to their friends and family members and spouse and hire their son-in-law for jobs different places and just do everything in private and just funnel corrupt money into all kinds of pockets? The reason sunshine laws exist is to force everything out into daylight so that the public can look for waste, fraud, abuse, and corruption. Non-disclosure agreements are not some sort of magic get out of jail free can do whatever you want. I think, in short, it's probably illegal and it just simply needs to go through the courts and be challenged.
Here was an uproar. I got this tape from that meeting that they had.
For over 1 million.
Now, this is the Perry Village, and the mayor gets kind of cornered here. Gesick is the mayor. He gets kind of cornered here because the people found out that there was an NDA, and they're not happy about it for very good reason.
And they can get out of it for $50,000 to $70,000. Explain that to me. I'd also like to know, was there an NDA signed by anyone on council or by you?
I believe I signed the NDA when we
Why would you sign
discussing
an
it
NDA?
in the beginning discussions.
Why?
To hear what they had to say.
So what is not being told to us?
Nothing.
A non-disclosure agreement. That means that he does not tell us everything that is going on.
No, the NDA.
There is intricate details of the agreement that he does not have the ability to tell us legally.
Before we take the next.
Oh, this is a good one. We had Curtis Kurd on. Now, he's a Perry Council Village councilman, but anyhow, he wasn't too happy.
Council, I want an answer, Mayor, as to why you told me that no one, including yourself, had signed an NDA.
I never told you that.
Lie.
No, you're lying. I never said that.
So they are supposed to have a town hall meeting soon, and this is when the citizens are actually going to be able to voice their opinion on the whole matter. But you're right. This was a dog and pony show the other night where you had the protesters out there, but anybody who went inside for the meeting had to be quiet. They were not allowed to talk.
So another one of those. They're not allowed to talk.
Well, you had to listen to what the data centers people had to say, and that was it. And all sunshine and roses, nothing to see here. But yet they do NDAs. And, there's no reason to do an NDA because the NDA isn't hiding anything. But we have to do an NDA.
Joe, I want to take a moment to agree with my colleague Jonathan Broadbent. NDAs in this context, if they're not illegal, they certainly violate the spirit of the law. And so I don't think it's appropriate for elected officials to be signing non-disclosure agreements, particularly about issues that are so public and should be public, because you're fundamentally making a community decision that is going to change the nature of your village forever. And I would take a position very similar to Commissioner Beveridge, who lives in Perry Village. I don't think that data centers are inherently good or evil. To some extent, you need to have facilities that allow our technological networks to work. Well, we're not saying that you can never have a data center anywhere, but having a data center in close proximity to residences and close proximity to schools, that's a different matter entirely. And that's exactly why we have home rule. And we give people the right to say yes or no, not just to data centers, but to any business coming in their community. But that system breaks down when the mayor and the council that people elect aren't listening to the people. That system breaks down when the people don't even know what's going on because a non-disclosure agreement is keeping everything a secret. And so I feel terrible for the people of Perry who are only finding out now some of the details about this deal after the fact that an agreement was signed, which puts the city, I should say the village, I think on the hook for $1 million if they back out. You should sign on the dotted line after the people have approved it, after you've made a final decision. When you sign before planning and zoning has even approved a project, you really put your community at risk. I mean, the city of Highland Heights, if I'm not mistaken, had a similar issue with a gas well many years ago. And Mayor Coleman, I believe, signed an agreement to place a gas well in the city park. And as soon as the residents found out after the fact, they were outraged. And they said, we don't want a gas well in the middle of the park. And Planning and Zoning Commission voted overwhelmingly, no, we're not going to permit it. But since the CEO of the city had signed on the bottom line, the city was on the hook, and I think they lost $1 million out of that deal. It really was a horrific mistake on the part of the mayor's office, and unfortunately, we're seeing that mistake being replayed in Perry. Ultimately, the people should decide what comes in their community. That's why we have elected representatives. But when we're not allowed to know what's going on, we're not allowed to speak and respond to what's going on, the whole system breaks down.
Yeah, you don't really have a system at that point, do you? You don't have a system when the citizens aren't allowed to talk and voice their opinions on everything like that. Yeah, and I talked to John Mara, who is a mayor of Timberlake, and he says, he would never, ever do an NDA. So I think that mayor in Perry Village is a little bit of hot water, but he did do it 2 years ago. And, here's the thing. Perry Village has 1,600 people. 1,600. And you have this mega, multi-billion, almost $1 trillion company coming in from California, and the slickest lawyers in the world. They're going to do a little arm twisting. They've got silver tongues. They just make it sound so good. And, these guys out there, 1,600 population, most of them are probably farmers and things like that. It's easy, they get manipulated. But the people have to make the decision. It sounds now like the people are making the decision. They have a lot of signs up, and they're not happy. And there is going to be a town hall. We'll hopefully cover that live. And just to let people know, tomorrow night I got a couple key individuals from Perry Village coming on. We're going to talk about the data centers, do a special Monday night show, which we haven't done one of those for a while. I want to bring on Aiden because, Aiden, how are you, man?
I am doing well. How are you?
Very good. I watched some of you speaking over there at that Christian Alliance, Ohio Christian Alliance event, and you're quite the speaker. I said that, I don't know if you know John Pleshnick or not, but I think you have a lot in common with him, and you're giving him a run for his money already. I'm going to play a little bit of that, but how are you? Hey, tell us a little bit. Where are you located? You're in Medina County, right?
I'm right in Medina County in the 66 State House District.
And that's a big Republican district.
It's gone Republican for as long as I can go back and see the district's history. And I'm pretty sure when it comes to the presidency, our county has not voted for a Democrat president since the Great Depression.
Yeah, so you got it. So you got a lot of Republican voters out there, which is good. So it means that the primary is really the winner because the Democrats will throw somebody up, but it'll just it'll be a non-entity. It's really the primary. The Republican primary is going to be the winner there. And you got yourself a tough competition, I believe. Is it Sean Hudson, right? Is your primary opponent?
Yes, my opponent. He is currently trying to do everything he can to make it seem as if he's the best candidate. I think he sent out almost 12 mailers at this point, whether it be from him, the Ohio Republican Party, a pro-gambling dark money pack out of Virginia called the American Conservative Fund, or many other groups, some that I've never even heard of before. And so he's doing everything that he can to win. And so it's definitely giving him a run for his money and giving myself a run for his money. I'm just thankful that no one is just going to simply be walking down the Columbus. We're both going to have to work for it.
Very good. Yeah, it looks like the Republican Matt Huffman and others like him are throwing money towards Sean Hudson quite a bit. So it looks like
I already don't like him.
Definitely is what's happening there. I got to play this. Let's play this here. This is you in action here. Let me get the volume on it.
Columbus to end that. People say, rightfully so, how will you fund the schools? An honest question requires an honest answer. The Supreme Court told Columbus 4 times to fix our school funding. Ohio has been illegally and unconstitutionally funding our schools for over 30 years now. They have never fixed the problem. They keep running your tax dollars through a Columbus bureaucracy where it gets diluted before it even reaches the classroom. Once again, I am running to fix this. Third is that we need to abolish the state income tax. That is an extra $2,000 to $5,000 a year put into your pocket. I met a very kind woman on the campaign trail when I was knocking on her door. She has a son born and raised in Ohio but lives in Nashville, Tennessee. They have no state income tax. He wants to come home, he's homesick. But that no state income tax out of Tennessee is too attractive to him. I think that we should be encouraging work, encouraging jobs here in the state of Ohio, not hindering them. Fourth is that we need universal school choice here in Ohio. No child should have their future hindered because the education system they live near is not best suited for them. Every child should have a quality education, whether it be public or private school, parochial or home. And lastly is the true term limits in Columbus. Not that waltz from House to Senate and then back to House to Senate to reset those term limits. We need to have true term limits. If 16 years is not long enough for you in Columbus, you are either incompetent at your job or you are taking advantage of the office, at which point, for both reasons, you should not be put back into Columbus.
Yeah, that's a good one. You also had something here to say about property taxes. Maybe I can find that one real quick here. Let me just see. But you are 100% in favor of abolishing property taxes. I do want to get that out as well, because we were just talking about that whole discussion here about property tax. Why don't you talk about that for a minute, that platform, property taxes?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. To be completely frank with you, we started off this campaign saying that we need to freeze property tax increases for our senior citizens. I have seen members of our community time and time again forcefully removed from their house because they cannot afford. They have to decide whether or not they can afford property taxes or their heart medicine or what have you. But then I just came to realize, I was looking at these things. We have had a Republican stronghold in the state legislature and in the governor's office for decades now, and yet we act not. And so I've come to realize that the only way that we are going to actually alleviate the pain right now is by fully abolishing property taxes here in the state of Ohio. And so to be completely truthful with you, I'd rather phase it out. But I see no feasibility. I don't see Columbus ever doing that. I don't see Columbus ever addressing the root of the problem. And so right now, all we need to do is we need to say that we as citizens are going to abolish property taxes, and we as citizens are going to elect individuals to the state legislature who are prepared to take up the torch after we abolish those property taxes to make sure that we have the 6,000 taxing authorities funded. And rightfully so. We have to look at it two ways. There's going to be, once again, 6,000 taxing authorities who are going to be bereft of funding. There are going to be, bonds that are not going to be paid for. And so we have to make sure to address that. But we also have to make sure that we complement that with spending cuts. Tax cuts without spending cuts just increases the taxes in general. And so we have to make sure that we are actually electing true fiscal conservatives, not just those boilerplate issue, people that just put the random words on there, whatever policy spaghetti sticks against the wall. We need to make sure we have actual true conservatives who are willing to look out for the best interests. And so, like I said, I started off saying we should freeze for property taxes for our senior citizens. I realize that Columbus will never address this issue, and now I am proud that I've personally signed the petition to abolish property taxes. I am encouraging others to personally sign it, and if given the ability to go down to the state legislature, I look forward to taking the next step to ensuring our state is on the right track after we abolish it.
Well, you're our kind of candidate right there. There's no question about it. He wants to abolish the property taxes, and he's only 19 years old. He's
I think he should be running for governor. You're shooting too low on the position you're looking for. Aiden, 19 years old. I commend you for being so astute at such a young age. That's truly amazing, and I appreciate you signing the petition. We'll make sure that we're going to send you one of our new Declaration of Independence, Ohioans' Declaration of Independence, because our legislators are not doing what is necessary, nor is our judiciary or the executive branch. So we as citizens are saying that we are going to abolish the property taxes because it's only up to us because our elected officials are not doing it.
Got it.
Thank you. A lot of people are asking me, as someone who is 19 years old, why are you running for state legislature at such a young age? And the truth is that, I've said at many speeches, but I mean it truthfully, I want to start a family here in Ohio. I want to have my children have the same opportunities that I had, and I want to have the same opportunities that my father had, and so on and so forth. And when I'm looking at it right now, I mean, the average first-time home buyer is over 40 years old. If I were to go to law school, which I intend on doing, I want to, if I were to go to law school, start working a decent job in law, I can't afford a house in the district. It's just impossible. And we have property taxes that even if, by some miracle I was gifted a house by through some publisher's clearinghouse or whatever, I couldn't afford the taxes on it. And so we're at this crisis right now that, the younger people, Gen Z, need to start realizing that if we do not elect true conservatives to the state legislature and to our Congress and to our national offices, we're going to begin this continuous perpetuation of we're not going to be able to afford anything. And we're just going to keep on being told you will own nothing and you will be happy. And I'm sorry, that's just not definition of happiness to me. I think you should have the opportunity to work hard, to take risk and to profit from that. And so, I just want to make the American dream affordable. I want to live the American dream myself, and right now, I don't see it as attainable.
Very good. Go ahead, John. If you've got a question for him.
So, Aiden, first of all, I want to commend you for your commitment to public service. I'm thinking back to when I was 19 years old. I hear you say you have an interest in law school. I actually started law school at the age of 19, and I didn't run my first campaign until 10 years after you, when I was 29 years old. So I think we're taking things in reverse order. You're doing the campaign first, the law school second. But I think that law school would be an excellent boost to your understanding of public service, how government functions, and really help you as you try to be a true public servant and do public policy right. As you pointed out, there are so many elected officials who just throw spaghetti and see what sticks on the wall. They'll say whatever gets them elected, and then they'll vote however the higher ups and the money donors tell them. But the few of us who actually want to make a difference, we really need to know the law. We need to understand what policies will move the state of Ohio forward. And I often compare lawyers and tax lawyers in particular to mechanics. We know how government works. We're not a fanboy of Mustangs versus Corvettes. We know what's in the engine and we know what needs to be fixed so we can get down that road faster. And I think law school would be an excellent fit for you. I'm also grateful to hear that you recognize that property taxes aren't just an issue for senior citizens on a fixed income. Young families can't afford to buy their first home in Ohio, and it's a tragedy. And it's a silent tragedy because you don't see the sale that never happened. You don't see the family walking away from the home. You just see the state of Ohio's population stagnant or dropping relative to our sister states because folks are going to lower tax states like Tennessee, Florida, Texas. Those states are booming because their taxes are lower and they're providing opportunity to young people and a better place to retire for our seniors. We're failing on every front. And if folks like you don't get elected to office, this state doesn't have a bright future. So we're rooting for you.
Well, thank you so much once again. Yeah, like I said, we have to be prudent with how we compare ourselves to other states. I'm always, a lot of people say, why don't we look towards Florida for like a full copy of their plan? They're a little bit more benevolent in the fact of their ability to have tourism. But, we are a very beautiful state. The good Lord has blessed us with many resources here in the state of Ohio. And so, we just need to make sure that we're cutting regulations that unnecessarily harm our industries. And like I said, tax cuts for everybody. And once again, and to a further point, I don't think that the government should be choosing winners and losers with these tax cuts. I think they should be universal, all over the board. I think that's the key right there. And so if we could just aspire to be the greatest state in the union, I think it's really attainable. But like you said, the problem is that these people will say everything. They'll sell you the moon during the primary election cycle. And then when they get into office, they'll do whatever they answer to. I'm proud of the fact that I've taken no PAC money. I am bought and paid for by no one. I said this in my speech to the Ohio Christian Alliance. The Bible is very clear. The gospel is clear. You cannot serve both God and money. You cannot serve two masters. And in public service, you cannot serve both the people that you are elected to serve at the same time as serving the special interests that are paying you to get in there. And so I'm not going to take money from these PACs. I'm quite disgusted by the fact that my opponent will through independent and dependent expenditures. And I'm just thankful for the opportunity to just be door knocking as much as possible. We've got a strong grassroots campaign. We're hitting the doors. We're getting mailers done. We're doing everything it takes, and we're going to, Lord willing, win this election.
Okay, so for medical freedom, it sounds like that's one of the issues that is big for you, and not so much for your opponent, which makes sense because I know that like Matt Huffman is not big into medical freedom either, and he's the one putting some of the money behind your opponent and other organizations and stuff like that. I don't know if you want to touch on that. Also, Second Amendment is big for you, not so big for your opponent. Apparently, you got an F rating from the Ohio Gun Owners Association. Any comments on any of that stuff?
Well, yeah, to the point of the Ohio Gun Owners Association, my opponent was questioned at a local grassroots meeting, which he only started attending once he started, getting closer to the election cycle. I've been proudly going to McFan, Medina County Friends and Neighbors, which meets in Medina the second and fourth Saturday of the month. I've been proudly attending our grassroots meeting for over 3 years now. I've really grown up in the grassroots movement, almost 4 years now. And he was asked, why didn't you sign the Ohio Gun Owners Association pledge? And he said, on quote, the post office got it to me too slowly. And so, don't get me wrong, I am a D1 hater of the United States Postal Service. They are absolutely horrible at their job. Don't get me wrong. But I don't use it as an excuse, I don't think that he should be using it as an excuse either. He should have said something along the lines of, maybe it was late, but I will happily do it now. For some reason, he hasn't filled that out. And for another reason, he hasn't filled out the National Rifle Association survey. And so I'm proud that I have an AQ from them, and he has a question mark. And so I think it's it's important. To be honest with you guys, I only have two rifles. I have a Ruger 1022 and a Spanish muzzleloader replica 50 caliber. And so I'm growing my collection. I'm unfortunately only have two, but I'm working on it. And then to the point of medical freedom, it's just simply important. I went through high school during COVID. That was really my transitional years from growing up was during high school. And I had to see, I was forced to wear a mask. If there was someone that allegedly got COVID in my classroom, I was required to quarantine for 2 weeks. We had to, do all these things. We had to find our own transportation. I lived like 7 miles away of Very Hills from our school, roughly, and we were told to bike or whatever. My parents worked; they couldn't drive us. And then I've also heard the horror stories of people who were required. They had their loved ones in the hospital; they couldn't visit them. And so medical freedom is very important to me. I think it's important that we have the ability to make those decisions for oneself as long as it's not harming someone else. And so to that point, and as well as my firearms stance, I am a Second Amendment absolutist. The Constitution and the Founding Fathers, they said what they said. They intended what they said. I'm tired of people trying to, put these crazy ideas in interpretation of the Constitution. And so if we just simply look at what the founders say about, this issue and many others, I think we'd be better off as a country. People ask me, what party are you? And I always say I'm a Republican because that's what I'm registered as. But truly, I am a God-fearing constitutional conservative. And I think that's the biggest thing to be looking for. We should be looking for, our Lord. We should be looking for our Constitution. And we should be looking at conserving the values that we have here as a state and as a nation.
That's awesome. And you need to get into that, what is that, law school, I guess it is, or something, if you plan to. And you got to get on and stay on the political trail, because we need people like you. We need young guns like you, and man, you're very, very impressive.
Indeed we do. So I wish you Godspeed and good luck with your collecting and the training that goes with that. A couple of things. I think I noticed in the comments there somebody had put that you have a website and Facebook presence. I think it was Haggard for Ohio. And maybe you can clarify that, Haggard. But I actually want to pay you a compliment because I was there on Saturday at the McFan meeting where you got up and spoke. And one of the key elements that I think, unfortunately, in this day and age, well, actually probably forever in politics, you have to look for is a good public speaker. And Saturday proved to be an interesting challenge for Aiden, and he rose to the occasion. He did very, very well. There was a disruptor in the group. It was a packed audience, and there was a man that started trying to video and shout and get his 5 minutes of fame on YouTube, And Aiden happened to be speaking during most of that. The police were called. It was a big hullabaloo. But Aiden handled himself beautifully, professionally, carried his message, and did a splendid job in a packed room, in a kind of a pressure setting, with this agitator there. And kudos to you, Aiden. That's the sort of thing that we look for, or should be looking for, in addition, of course, to the great platform and policies that you're advocating for. So good job on Saturday handling yourself, and I'll just open it up to any comments you have about that.
Well, thank you. Unfortunately, we did have an agitator at McFan. He was trying to pester Marcel Sturbich, and he asked a question. And I think it's important that we ask tough questions of our elected officials, even if we like them, and our candidates as well. And he asked a question about the 2020 election. Do you believe that it was stolen? Marcel Sturbich said something in the short lines of no, and he starts accusing Marcel of making this post. He said he didn't make it. Long story short, things get agitated. He's yelling. He's disrupting the meeting. And this is right as I'm about to speak. And so I try to talk to people. I'm trying to go through what I was trying to say. My last 2 weeks of the election. What's our recap? What are we trying to do? What's our last final goals that we want to accomplish? And he keeps on interrupting. And I think it's important that, and I mentioned this after he left, I will give kudos to my opponent where it is necessary. We are actively going against each other and sometimes butting heads with policies, but he's always been civil. He's always been respectful. And to that extent, I appreciate it. Once again, I completely disagree with his policies, and I'm not happy who's paying for his campaign. But at the end of the day, he and I are civil, and that's what it's meant to be. And I think public speaking is very important. I don't think that we should be electing our legislators simply on their oratory skills alone. But I'm a huge nerd for the classics. I study Latin as much as possible. I study, the great statesman Cicero. And so I'm rather inspired by that. And once again, realizing that, as a younger man, I am 19 years old. I will not be the smartest man in that legislature. I will not be the smartest person in that legislature. I'm not the smartest person right now, but being able to give what I see in my community and through the lens of a younger person, I think that's very important. And so it was definitely tragic that man came in with malicious intent, not trying to find a genuine answer, but to simply attack. But I'm thankful for all things considered the way it was handled.
So,
if I could chime in there, Joe.
I have to ask Jonathan, Aiden, I have to ask both of you a question, because if I hear correctly, Aiden, the agitator was pushing the question, was the 2020 election stolen?
That's what I was going to drill down on.
And did Marcel Sturbich really say no? Because
no.
I would have to say absolutely yes, that election was stolen from President Trump. We all know he won, not once, not twice, but 3 times.
I take the same position, and that's actually the comment that I was going to make. I with all due respect, Aiden, I think that's a mischaracterization of the response that Marcel Sturbich gave. Marcel Sturbich, first and foremost, was keyed in on the accusation that a post had been made by him, and it wasn't. When it comes to the election, Marcel Sturbich has maintained from actually before he announced, and several times on this program, the very steadfast position, and I'll put it in my terminology, that we can't rely on the election results that we get because there's too much cloudy, murky, corrupted nonsense that takes place in our election systems. And when we can't trust our elections, we lose our voice in government. We no longer have representative government when enough we, the people, feel that our elections are not valid. His answer was something along that line, which I actually think was a good and valuable answer. But to your point, John Plechnik, his answer in my book, and there's not a recording of it, but I think you could get it from him or people near his campaign easily, was not, no, I don't think the 2020 election was stolen. It was very different than that. It had to do with pushing hard to get corrections to the way that we conduct our elections so that we can once again trust them.
Yes, my apologies. That was a mischaracterization on my end. A lot of was going through my mind right then. Yes, you are correct. He was trying to say that here, I think he said obviously no to the post that was made. And so he was saying, I think the post that was in reference was basically saying that there was too much inconsistencies, irregularities to bring the question. So you are correct. And so, and Marcel handled it wonderfully. Our Congressman Max Miller was in the back, and he chimed in and said, too, that the election was stolen in 2020. And so, yes, you are correct. My apologies. I did mischaracterize Marcel. I'm very proud to support Marcel, and that was a mistake on my end. Thank you for catching that.
Very good. Aiden, give us your closing thoughts here. Just wrap it up here with your closing comments about the upcoming election and why we should vote for you.
Well, thank you so much once again for the opportunity to be on today. If you believe in common sense, conservative values, I humbly ask your vote for Aiden Haggard for state legislature. I am proud of the fact that I've been in the district for over 8 years now. I've grown up in the district. I went to middle school and high school in the district, and I understand the values of the district. My opponent just moved here 2.5 years ago. I understand the plight of what it looks like to try to be a young professional, and I firmly believe that we need to cut these regulations that are being produced by unaccountable and unelected bureaucrats. We need to, as citizens, abolish property taxes, and as a state legislature, ensure that we follow through with properly funding and then also cutting the spending of our taxing agencies and authorities. And so further than that, we need to make sure that we are incentivizing working by having no income tax at the state level. I think every single child should have the opportunity to have a quality education. That's through universal school choice. I think we have great schools in our district, but not every child is made for the school district they're near. And so I think it's important that we give every child the opportunity to thrive in whatever that aspect it looks like. And then lastly, like I said, is true term limits in this in our state legislature. I don't think you should be making a career out of being in politics. I think you should serve. Like I said, I study Latin, I study Cicero, and I also look at Cincinnatus. He was a Roman leader, basically the president of Rome at the time, and he did his 4 years. And he went back to his farm. He was a humble man. I think that's what we should be looking for. We should be looking for humble individuals who are trying to serve. And so if you believe in common sense conservative leadership, and if you believe in my contract with Medina, those 5 core policies, I humbly ask for your vote. And thank you once again for the opportunity to be here.
Wow, thank you. God bless you. That was excellent. I give you an A+. And you got my vote, but I'd have to sneak into Medina County to give it to you. Hey, have a good night, Aiden. Thank you again.
Thank you
good
very
night, everybody. Guys.
Good night, all.
Have a good night. See you.
See ya. Good night.
You fucker!